Well, hello to our new listeners. Thanks for joining. And to our returning guests, welcome back. Welcome to season 6 of the Sibyl podcast. My name is Mo. In this season, like you've been used to, get ready for more amazing stories, more inspirational stories to help you set your stories free. I created this podcast as a resource for Blacks, Asians, and those who love them to share stories and processes, as well as to build community around important salient issues that affect all of us as humans. So on this show, you get to hear amazing stories from people like you who show us how to get more out of life. The stories featured here are by people whose journey I am partly inspired by, as well as challenged by, but most importantly, people whose courage and vulnerability have afforded us an opportunity to hear their life stories. And I hope you find them as inspiring. Now enjoy the show, and don't forget to share this episode and the other ones.
A long time coming.
Like 4 years. It feels like a quarter of an Avatar movie. I don't know if you know that the first Avatar movie took about 14 years because the director Cameron didn't have the technology to shoot some of the scenes. And then the next one took like 13 years because they wanted to do motion camera because it was real water. So that kind of took a longer time. I feel like this podcast episode, even though it wasn't like we're looking for technology, it's taking so long, but I believe it's going to be a very banging good episode because I
hope so too, that it was worth the wait.
It will be worth the wait. That's why I've been pushing with you. I'm like, Adeodat, we're going to give her time. Whenever Adeodat is ready, she's going to do it. So I'm glad this is the day the Lord has made,
Yay!
So welcome back to the podcast, everyone. That was just a quick chat with my wonderful sister, Adeodat. So who is Adeodat? Guys, when I told her to fill the form, this lady, just show you how really modest she was. She just put educator scientist. But you know how we do on this podcast. We don't let those kind of things slip by. So let me blow her horn. This lady is loaded, y'all. Hey, talk about beauty and brains. I mean, you already know the beauty because as you're looking at the flyer, you know that this person is beautiful. But she's a hot, babe la hot. She's a scientist. I mean, she's done.
You're just trying to make me blush, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, you have to blush because you have to do the work. We've got to promote each other as women. So, guys, she's done a lot of work on hepatocellular carcinoma. She's, used to work on mouse models for cancer. I actually met her at a prostate cancer conference. And I think she worked with one of my friend's brother, Dr. Moabi. And I think their work was looking at potential biomarker for aggressive prostate cancer. I know for those that are not scientists, we probably lost you. So cancer right now, the markers we use to detect it is usually PSA, which is not very, very quite accurate. No. So they're trying to look for more specific targets that if somebody is like excreting this particular biomarker, we're able to say with a higher specificity and sensitivity that, this is, prostate cancer. And then she schooled in France. Hey, y'all. She schooled in France at
Mo.
Oh, hold on, girl. Hold on. Okay, this is where the guests are like looking at who's this person that invited me to the podcast. Mm-hmm. Hold on, I gotta do this.
I did not give you all this information.
Don't worry, you didn't give it to me. That's why I'm doing this. I had to go research you. Do you know the kind of stout food I had to go into? She's talking and researching. She got her PhD, guys, from France, right? And her work then was looking at host pathogen interactions using Hep C virus life cycle. Again, looking for new potential therapeutic targets. And then she left France, went to the US to go and do her postdoc at the Hunter College, where she was looking at disparities in prostate cancer between males of African ancestry and Caucasian males. So this is where I work into set, because I do prostate cancer research, as some of you may know. And then she decided that, you know what, research, I'm going to put a pause on it. Let me go sit with the big guys and let me bam a little bit. And then she went to the Bard High School Early College, where she served as assistant professor for 4 years, from 2017 to 2021. And then Adeodat, like that, overachieving African, she's like, assistant professor, I've done that one. Now let me go to the big bones. Guys, guess what? She's the dean. She's a whole dean. My friend is a whole
goodness.
dean and a half at the Bar High School Early College in Manhattan from 2021. Of color, immigrants, French speaking. She's also from Burkina Faso, which I didn't mention. So shout out to my Burkina friends. These guys remember we've had Farida on the show, right? And who was the very first Burkinabe. And now we have Adeodat. These are really highly, highly successful women doing great things in this oversaturated economy that we're in. So we've got to blow our trumpet. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Dr.
Oh my goodness.
Ade, like her dad calls her, but we're going to call her Dr. Adeodat Ilboudo to the podcast. And she's a wonderful mom and a wife with 2 kids.
Thank you.
All right.
I think my work is done here. He was not leaving you guys. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Educator said, you think you're going to get away on this podcast? No. Hey, we got to shine you now. But thank you. I'm glad to have you here. And guys, she just launched her podcast. I mean, this girl does a lot, which we're going to talk to you guys about at the end of it. Because for those of you that might have parents, that might have kids in, high school, or even working with kids in those kind of settings, her podcast is a gem because this lady has like a lot of lived experiences and she has a passion for teaching. As you can see, to move from research to a solely teaching position, people do it the other way around, but she did it that way because you can tell she has a heart for teaching. So we're going to highlight her podcast at the very end. So stick to the very end of this episode and even check the resource page because we're going to be tagging and including all the links to her podcast where you can find her. So Adeodat, let's start with your story. And she's also beautiful. I think I said that before, but it's wanted to be mentioned.
Man, I am so blushing right now.
You should blush. The good thing about being African, I can't see the red, but I
know, right? You can't see it, so it works. It works.
With just how you grow up and so Burkina Faso, what was that like? And let's start with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you again for having me. It's a true pleasure to be here with you all this morning. So I'm the firstborn of my family. So growing up, you always, again, in African households, as the firstborn, you always have that pressure to kind of give the example because everything is kind of dependent on you. It's like, okay, you have your siblings.
Yep.
Right? I have 3 siblings. So they were like, you need to show the good example so they know what to do and how to, follow your footsteps. So that added pressure that nobody needs, but that everybody as a firstborn has. So I've always been careful in thinking, okay, is this going to set the right example? Is it how, I should be doing things if I want my brothers and sister to kind of follow the footsteps? But otherwise, it's actually been a quiet and peaceful childhood. My dad was traveling a lot for his work, so he wasn't home that much. So we were with my mom for most of the time. So she had, the load of, caring for the 4 kids most of the time. And as you know, African moms, their patience can be wear thin sometimes.
Why are they all like that? And the irony is that we're becoming like that too.
I know. Yeah. So, I was just like making sure that I was straight as an eye. I was not about to, be causing any trouble, but otherwise, to be honest, it was, a peaceful and joyful and fun childhood. Again, growing up in Africa, you don't have the stress and all of the worries that you may have as a kid somewhere else with other pressures than the one from your family directly. So growing up with my siblings, taking care of them, helping take care of them, and, being part of the family early on. And doing things as part of the family early on, the learning to cook, the chores, the managing and maintaining things. So that was my childhood. So went to middle school, then went to high school, and my school was a little bit far from my house, but that was fine. So I had a motorbike, so that was something. Oh, yes, I know. I was fancy like that.
Motorbike?
My mom had upgraded her motorbike and gave me the old one. It's not like anything fancy. And actually, I need to post
like
some pictures.
Moped, like a Vespa?
Yes. totally looked like the Yamaha. I don't know if you remember that Yamaha with
of course, I know Yamaha. So is this like a Burkina Faso thing? Because Nigerian moms would never let a girl ride on a bike. I didn't even learn to ride a bike until my big ass was like my 30s. Because my mom said I was going to scrape my knees, and then I was not going to be married.
Oh,
I don't use the exact word, but that's how I interpreted it.
Oh no, I was lucky enough. They were like, you do you, because it was a little far.
Girls ride on moped. I know Indian girls do that. Because my friend had a
we do that really early on.
Nigerian moms, get in here.
Oh no, I'm sorry, mommy. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, it's okay.
So it was a pretty good.
Pretty good childhood the same.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And your siblings, are they still back in Burkina Faso, or you guys are all scattered all over?
Yes, actually everybody is still back in Burkina. I'm the only one who, went abroad, like outside of the continent for studies, and then abroad again to live. So everybody's still back home.
So I know in Burkina Faso, one of your major languages is French. So was that why moving to France wasn't like a no big deal? Is that what most highly achieving students from Burkina Faso do? Is the path to France quite easy? Relatively easier, sorry.
Yes, I would say relatively easy, because again, you do not have the language barrier. And there was actually another added layer to why it is that I went to France, and specifically in the city where I went. Because my dad, I told you just a few minutes ago that he used to travel a lot. And part of his travels and his trips were related to the fact that my village back home was a sister, like twin sister. I don't know how you call it in English, but twin sister.
Leon? What school?
No, it was Brest. It was
Brest.
To Brest. So early on, as we were kids, we used to host people from France coming to do some work with my village, some kind of partnerships and things like that. So we were really introduced very early on to, French people coming to visit, and my dad also going there for work. So we had already established a good family friendships and solid friendships. So when came the time to, go abroad to study, the decision was kind of made by itself. His friends there that knew us from when we were young were like, you know what? She needs to go abroad to study. She's still young. Why don't you bring her in Brest so that she has people there and she's not by herself, like in a whole, another country. And that's how it happened. So I applied for school specifically only in that city because, again, that's where we knew the most people. And the change was not going to be too drastic in the way that we knew people. If something happened, again, so that kind of eased everybody. I guess my parents too, because again, firstborn, first one to go abroad can come with its anxieties. And I was lucky in that sense, truly.
Okay, we're going to talk about your experience in France, but what would you say was some of the, because I know some things have been happening in your country recently, the coup, and then your president, and then also the military coup, and then the criticism that Kabore has been facing. This is in the north of Burkina Faso, right? And even the comparison to what's happening in Mali. And I think if we're to summarize it, it still has a lot to do with the influence France has in your country. Now, we're not going to turn this into a political episode, but how would you say Burkina Faso is right now? Like, giving, I'm sure you have your ears and your eyes back home because you still have some of your siblings back home. What's the situation back home, and how is that affecting you, if it has?
Well, the situation is that right now people are showing more and more true, distrust for France and their politics, and, thinking that, again, part of the situation that we are in, we're always trying to look for, someone who may share the responsibility. So that's the situation. It looks like, from, what I've read in the past few days, that Traore is really trying to do, the now president, to recruit people so that we have more eyes everywhere where we have, the insecurity, and also planning for campaigns to kind of collect food, to make sure that places where people don't have access to food, then they will get that access. Now we are also facing another challenge, that is the surge in price in
inflation, everywhere,
also, right, where people are hoarding the gas and reselling it for like 3 times its price. So it's always so frustrating in a situation where everybody is in the same bag. We are all struggling, we are all suffering. There are people that are also still, trying to find a way to make a buck or two behind other people's back. So we are always like battling with all of this. Like, how do we prevent our own greed from taking over and impacting other people's quality of life? And then how do we keep moving forward and making sure that we recover the country that we want to live in, So it's been, and to be honest, living far from home, it's been painful to kind of see the information and kind of understand truly what's going on. And I pray every day that one day we will resume and go back to where we were. And I don't.
Yeah, because you guys are so blessed. You have gold, you have cotton.
Exactly.
You're one of the cotton producers in Africa. Yeah. You have gemstones,
and we used to be so peace and quiet.
Yes.
Nothing was going on until, 7-8 years ago.
You had Christians, you had people of every religion just coexisting.
And we were just living together in a perfect harmony, like, to be honest. And now it's really sad to see how it has degraded over time. Yeah.
I think the bottom line is that Francophone Africa is just so done with France, and it's continuing
so done.
They just need to leave. Look at what they've done to Chad, Mali, Mauritius, and Niger.
It's ridiculous. Like, everywhere they are, there is something going on. Like, how? Like, how does that make sense? Like, everywhere they are,
there's something going on. And they haven't left. And they keep taxing you guys in a very, very heavy way. But I hope Traore has a plan,
I hope
Otherwise,
so too.
History is just going to end up repeating itself.
Yeah. From what I've heard, when I'm having the discussion with my siblings, they seem to have some good faith in him, seeing the kind of work that is starting to be done.
Put your hope on one president.
That is so true too.
We're about to go vote in Nigeria again next year, and there's this particular candidate who I'm not going to mention, who has been touted to be the next hope. I get it. He has fresh ideas. He's younger, as well eloquent, but we can't put our hope on one person. No one person can fix the country.
That is true.
It takes a well-considered effort of everybody, and a lot of this corruption happens at the grassroots level. You can't just elect a president and then stop doing your own civil work.
Totally.
Make sure you know everything that's going on. Know your civil liberties. How can you even get involved in politics? Not like voting or running for leadership. But a lot of those things, I think it's just so much emphasis on the office of president. Yeah, and then a lot of oversight goes on. Sorry, go ahead.
But the thing, what I was going to say is that at least, back home with you in Nigeria, education has been on the forefront for a long time, right? So people are going to school, they're going to college. In Burkina, it's not the same. There's only so few people who have access to university and having a way of thinking that they can critically think for themselves.
It's a deliberate effort.
Exactly. So it's just complicating so many things because, again, people are not, they don't have the resources first to even like have a full stomach enough that they can sit and think, right? And two, because they haven't been in the education system in a way, because again, you can be in the education system and not being able to think for yourself. But anyways, like that forward thinking and critical thinking and just analyzing things before reacting or just, it's not there. That's why we are just suffering because people no longer have that common goodness thing, like everybody for themselves.
And it's just survival, because when you're in poverty, it's survival mode. And you guys you're so little. Like, no, I say little, you're like 21 million.
I know.
That's like, one little local government in Nigeria. I was just even looking it up right now. Your literacy rate is about 30-something%, like 39%. Yeah. Nigeria, in contrast to Nigeria, we're like 7-something%. Man, that's super low.
Yeah. Oh, totally. It is so low. It is
I mean,
so.
there's some changes going on because in 2007, you guys were at 28%. And then in 2014, you moved on to 34%. So it's been climbing up steadily, but it still has a lot of catching up to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And I think there's been a lot of school closures too. And in looking at this now, they say that about 42% of your population above 15 is literate. So you're not even catching them young.
No.
Oh, wow.
It's really something. And, thinking about it, being here and being so passionate about education, sometimes I ask myself the question is like, what it is that we need to do to make this better? Like what type of, and again, we are copying literally the education system from France, which does not fit our needs and our model.
Yeah.
So how much of a change and how much would it take for us to revamp and do things according to what we truly need and bring our people to where we need to be? And it has to be a concerted effort. And it feels like nobody wants to undertake the challenge. And it's like, but what can we truly do as a one single individual? Like, what can you really do? And it's frustrating and it's painful to witness.
Because, illiteracy plus unemployment is just a perfect recipe for poverty. And that itself could also be a weapon that these people keep using to keep you being subservient and just dependent.
Absolutely. It's a recipe for disaster and a well-crafted weapon. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think your country what's happening right now is not different from what's happening in other countries, even in my country as well. With just not having strong leaders in power, and then the citizens are so stressed up.
Yeah.
They've been, hit on all sides. You can't even think freely. If you even think about the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, to get to that point of, self-actualization, you have to meet the basic needs. Some of us don't have the basic needs met in Africa. No. So how are we supposed to even get to our potential,
Right.
So these are the issues.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for you, though, because it seems like you've done above and beyond. I mean, a Ph.D. in applied microbiology in France and then coming to the US, I imagine it hasn't been quite easy. So you went to France. You went to France. I know you speak French, right? But tell me, were there any things you had to overcome as a person who was different, moving to France, despite not having to overcome a lot of language barriers?
It was actually quite interesting because, again, I was very fortunate that before I went there to start my schooling, I had gone there to visit those family friends. So so I wasn't.
By the way,
you
used to keep in touch with them.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's really truly become a family of families because there were several of them.
That's good.
And up to this day, we keep in touch. And yes, it's very, very endearing. And when I got there, the family that I lived with, because again, she considered my dad as her brother. She calls him, my brother. So she was like, come live with us. We will figure this out, So I left my family to move in with a family. So I cannot even say anything bad about this family. Sometimes how you want to complain and be like, oh, no, I cannot, because they really considered me as a part of their family. Anything that they did, they took me with them. They would go to the restaurant. They would take me. They would go to the movies. They would take me because, again, I had known them prior. But when I moved in, it was really as if I was part of the family. There was no difference at all. They only had one son. So he was always like, oh, you are my favorite daughter. And I'm like, you only have one daughter anyway. So it's like, but just to tell you how, at least in that familial sense, I was really well supported and, taken care of. We knew other families that didn't live far from us. So I would go to visit those again because, again, they had come to visit Burkina. So I knew them. When I got to school, that was a different thing. I got there in the end of August, like the very first year I got there.
What year was that?
2004.
Oh.
I know, 2004.
You were young.
So young. I know, back in the day.
You're so young.
So young. I was so cold. I was so cold. So whatever coat they would use for the winter, That's what I was already wearing. Not even the end of fall. I know. Not even the end of summer. So, and it was also a very windy area. So the wind, like, if you are not well, in your feet, the wind will take you and drop you somewhere else.
Because I think if I remember Brest, very popular for their maritime,
Yes, absolutely, yes. So absolutely, right? So when I got there and started school, I remember in our class, I think number of students wise, we may have been like close to 150, and there were only like 3 Black students.
And you were all Black students, international students, or you were the only international?
No, I was the only international. The other Black student, she was born in France, had gone back to Congo because she was from Congo to go to up until high school and came back. But she was already, French and everything. And the other one, she had come from Gabon, but she was in France for longer than I was. I had just arrived. Some of the conversations with the students, they will be like, how did you get here?
Oh, yeah,
like, did they,
oh my God.
Like, did they give you a stipend for you to be able to come and study in France?
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, I was, again, at that time, I was young. I was so up in my feelings. You could not even talk to me anyhow. So I would jump on their throat like, I'm like, what is it that you're talking about? Like, sometimes I would want to tell them, if you knew that maybe back home, I may be living better than you. It's not about the money, but it's just about the comfort and the things that I know. It's just like ignorance sometimes. And it took me some time to wonder if it was mere ignorance, because again, they're not shown Africa, or they're not.
Or they're shown as only a part of Africa,
That kid with the fly on the right?
Fly.
And the big tummy.
Yeah, I see him right now.
Right. So I know. So it took me some time to pause and step back and just decide that I was not going to react the way I used to every time that someone asked a question that is ridiculous like that. Because again, I went there. It was not for, a stipend. I didn't get any, scholarship to go to the school, nothing. My parents were basically, paying. Granted that it wasn't as expensive that, here in the US, but the French government did not subsidize any of my schooling because I came from Burkina Faso, right? So having people not even trying to understand before jumping to those questions was just so frustrating. So that's something that I really battled with for a long time. And I was like, okay, those are young kids anyway. They don't understand anything. But when you talk to the grown-ups, because I was part of a choir when I got there, I was like, I need some social life in my life. So I went to the local church choir, and we would have some rehearsings weekly at nights and things like that. Older people, as you know, usually in, Western countries, the member of choirs are usually, on the elderly side, sometimes close to retired. Nice and things like that. However, I remember one specific instance where the lady was like, I hope that, when you finish your studies, you will go back home, because that's really where they need you the most.
They're everywhere. These people are everywhere.
I'm like, you don't even know how I got here. Like, to this day, like when I think about it, I'm like, what can motivate somebody to come? And I don't know if it was well intended. I'm like, why? I don't need you to tell me any of those things. And I'm like, I do not need to be physically in my country to be the most useful, because that's what people don't understand. It's like, why would you even say that? Like, anyway, it was never in my face. I cannot tell you that somebody had called me names right in my face, but it was just the way they would bring some questions or make some remarks, like those microaggressions. That was a big part of it. And it was just frustrating. It was really, really frustrating. But then, as time went on, because I did spend 9 years there. So as time went on, I did all my schooling, like from your high school to university. right when I graduated from high school, I started college there, all the way to the PhD.
Oh, then my PhD, and then, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you qualify enough to be a French citizen, or you couldn't get that?
I was like, I'm not interested, actually. I did not want to.
After 9 years, wow.
I did not want to, because I at that time, I knew exactly why I went to France. I went there to get an education that hopefully, you know, with the PhD, because I always had that vision. I'm going to go there. I'm going to focus, get my education, and get out. Okay. Staying in France had never been in my, you know, purview. So I was like, never. So I was like, you know, I don't want the trouble. I don't want to have to say anything to them. Just keep your papers. So I just renewed my student visa until it was done, and I just up and left.
When last did you go there?
Actually, I haven't returned since I came back, 2014. But I've been planning though, to go back with the kids. Okay. And, you know, it's been proving challenging a little bit, but I do want to go because, again, overall, I had a great experience.
Those people in breast.
Yes. And then when I moved to Rennes, that's where I met more students from Africa and from Burkina. We had our small community, and to this day, we still communicate. So when I go, I have so many people that I need to see. And that's actually why I haven't gone yet, because I truly need to set up a full month if I want to make sure that I see everybody that I want to see. There are many. So
okay. I think that was not enough. You were like, you know, I've conquered France, you little Marco Polo. Let me go to the other land of races. Let me start all over again in this weird place called US. And you came here for your postdoc.
Yeah.
So tell me, how was it like adjusting? Because I know, again, you're bilingual.
Yeah. You're
in France, which is a totally different place from the US. But perhaps being in New York might also have some, how do I put it? Like some credit to you, because New York is more diverse. Yeah. It seems to be more immigrant friendly. But what are some of the, I guess, the differences or the challenges that you experienced moving to New York for your postdoc?
So,
and how did you even get the position?
Oh, so that's, oh man, you are bringing back those memories more, aren't you? So the reason why I moved specifically to New York initially, you know, the young and stupid love instead. So I was like, you know, so that was the thing. So the location was already, you know, decided for me for that specific reason. So when I finished and I graduated from the PhD, I knew that I wanted, you know, at least a few years of experience as a postdoc, because I really still enjoyed research, and I still do. So I applied for the positions. I went, you know, online. I contacted different universities and figuring out, you know, do you need somebody? I have a PhD. This is the experience that I have, and so on and so forth. So everybody that I contacted at the time, they were very interested in me, but they didn't have any, you know, funding for a postdoc. Because the good thing that I have to say with, you know, when you get your PhD from France is that they know the rigor that it took for us to get the PhD. So they really like PhD, French PhDs. So that wasn't, you know, an issue.
God, they're giving you some credit.
I know. That was the thing. I'm like, I do not want to go to school to have to, you know, convert that degree. I want it to be taken as it is, you know. So I was like, if I need to get just the PhD and then be done.
Africans there. Hey, got some trauma.
I know, totally. So I was lucky for that, and lucky that, you know, people were interested in my expertise. But however, they did not have the funding until I got online on Indeed. I will never forget, and I saw a position written up, you know, from a newly minted assistant professor who was, you know, coming to New York to start his lab, and the description of the position was like, it was written for me. Like, honestly, like all the things that he needed that person to be able to do. I was like, wait, that's me. I know how to do this. I have done this all my PhD. And so I applied, got interviewed, got the position. So he interviewed me, you know, I think it was in November, but
right?
Yes, he was Ogunwobi, yeah. And we wouldn't start until February because he wasn't even in New York yet. So his start date was February. So I was already here in the US because I had come for the holidays or for the vacation, because I still had, a tourist visa from the US that I used to come back and forth as I was doing my PhD. So I was here job hunting, got the position. He offered me the position. Now I had to go back to France to change my visa into a J1 so I could come, to start the postdoc.
Sponsors.
Yes. So that's how it happened. Came here, and man, was a slap in the face.
Tell me what.
It was a slap in the face. Oh my goodness.
Tell me what.
Oh, it was so rough, because coming for 1 month at a time to visit was different than being like, okay, now I'm here. And the whole thing also is that, again, as I was starting my postdoc, I was pregnant. Starting a new position in a new lab as the only postdoc for some time. I am telling you, I don't do things, half-half. I just go in.
Girl. Why are you like me? I told the pregnancy part though, but why are you like me?
Oh my goodness. I'm like just head on, So that was very interesting. And also I suffered the most for the food, because I was like, what kind of food is this? This food has no taste. What's the yogurt 0% fat? Like 0% fat. I was so mad all the time because of the food. I blame it on the hormones though. But man, it was just like
but
the
still.
food I struggled. Yes. But got through the pregnancy. But again, because I had barely worked for like 6 months, I was not eligible for FMLA. So I had to go back to work 6 weeks after giving birth.
Man, these are things that probably would never have happened in France.
In France, no. Yeah. So that was, this is now where I am, 6 weeks. And so again, it was really interesting, because trying to get used to the environment, trying to be, a mom to my kid, and then be, a wife, all the things. And, but, I think as Africans, one thing though that I have to say is that our parents, our mothers in particular, have just, I don't want to use the word trained, but that's the best word that comes in mind.
Engineered us.
Right? I know.
With the microchip.
Right? To take on those challenges and be able to blend them the best we can, or at least like make do. So I did what I had to do. I didn't even ask myself the question. I was like tunnel vision. I'm like, okay, this needs to happen. I need to still be a successful postdoctoral fellow. I need to be a good mom. So let's just like do whatever I can every time, all the time.
You're the firstborn. You're always conditioned to always seek that excellence. But even if you're not thinking about your siblings, you've been engineered in such a way that everything you do it in a way that you want to always keep making your family name proud.
Absolutely. So that was that. And being alone, like in another country, no close family members, to talk of. Usually, you would have your parents coming, help you with the baby. My mom did come a little bit, but she couldn't stay too long. It was,
But you did it. Before I move on to the next step of your life, I just want to teach some lessons from your story. You from France and coming to the US, you sought out those opportunities for yourself. And despite looking at that LinkedIn, you're like, man, this looks too good to be true. You could have just said, there's no way I can get in, and not applied. But you never know until you apply. So I think that's the moral of the story here, guys.
Yes.
And ladies listening to this, apply. Yes. You never know. You just never know. You just never know.
The worst they can say is no.
Is no.
And that's okay.
Right?
So, yeah, absolutely. Take your chances. Never give up. If you want it, just ask for it. The worst they can say is no. Yeah.
So I met you around the time you had Rania, which was 2014. So I met her in Jamaica. And we had gone for a conference. Shout out to Professor Dedino's conference. That's how we met. And then I remember, you naturally see, when you see like Africans, you just naturally want to just say hello, hi. Just, even though we're in Jamaica, there had other Africans, but we're coming from the US. And Adeodat she stood out differently. We made other friends, but I just connected so well with her because of just how open she was, very honest, very forthcoming, and very intentional. And I remember, my goodness, even during the conference, because she had a baby not too long ago, she had to keep, pumping her breast milk. And oh my God, Adeodat did a lot. She's like, I don't want to dump them out, so she was space them in. But and that was the first time I realized that, my goodness, pregnancy is not for the faint-hearted. Because our child is all the way back in New York, but the signals were still sending, through Wi-Fi. Yeah. Again, engineering.
I know.
And the hotel staff, I think they were so very, they were helpful in the sense that they helped you get like a small fridge in your room.
Yeah.
And you could keep, and that's when I realized that, man, breast milk is premium. It's premium product. You can't just express them and dump them. You have to
liquid gold. Truly liquid
Thank
gold.
You for that. Liquid gold. But how was it like, balancing being a new mom, especially the mom part of it, and your kid, and in your career and postdoc? I mean, I hate to say this, but postdocs, they don't get a lot of credit for what they do. And you guys do so much. They're like at the bottom of the totem pole where you do so much and not giving all the... And then you had a wet lab. How did you do it in New York?
It was rough. But again, I was just tunnel vision. I was trying to focus and just do the best I can, like where I could. Because again, on top of, the wet lab work and doing my own research, because we were so new, our team, I basically built the lab from scratch. Because again, when we came in, we had nothing. So one of the previous researcher who, had retired and gave us his lab space, but we had to build everything, all the supplies, the equipment. And my PI, which was what he needed to do, was mostly in his office trying to look for those grants and apply so we can have the money to set up the lab. But the setting up the lab, like the talking to the representative, the buying the stuff, the making sure that you test the serum and whatnot, all of it fell on me. But again, I loved research and I was like, man, I have this opportunity to be in this lab and do research that I'm passionate about. Let's go. And again, pregnant with my belly, I was running up and down it was just, now I'm thinking about it fondly, but I'm just realizing that it was a lot of work. But I think I've always been lucky in the way that I can manage to plan things well when I'm not too stressed and when I'm excited about something. So I find a way, to make it happen. So I think that's what kind of kept me going, because again, it's true that when you are really passionate and enjoying what you're doing, you are finding the time to kind of blend both, even if, it does take some time. So I would go to work, go in the room. We had a small room that I can go and pump. And then after the pumping, I'll be out and, helping the students with what they needed help with, and doing my own research and applying for that travel award that I got that brought me, to Jamaica when we met. But I was just, again, like you said, even when you don't have the, all the time the parents telling you about that you need to succeed, whatnot, because you've had the talk so long ago and, it stayed there. So I was like, I need to make something of myself. One, I am a female. Two, firstborn of my parents. So they need to be able to have their head high when they go somewhere and knowing that, our daughter is doing good work and is trying to manage, things. So that also, I think, is what kept me going. It was not easy, but I made it happen the best I could.
Man, you're amazing. You're just amazing. That's just the thing about you. So you left. What made you also wrap up? I mean, postdocs cannot be postdocs forever, right? And then from postdoc to assistant professor, how was that transition like?
That transition was actually very coincidental, but I'm so glad, it happened. So again, one really major part of the lab work that I enjoyed, besides the wet lab and the research itself, was mentoring the students. And I've always liked teaching. I've always been in a capacity where I'm talking to people because, again, as you can see, I love to talk and just sharing what I know. So even when I was a PhD student, I was also a TA. So I was doing the labs and things like that. So I always enjoyed that interaction with the younger students and showing them how to do things and stuff like that. So I knew that part of my career would involve some type of either mentoring or teaching or something where I'm talking to, to younger people. So it had happened at a time that during the postdoc, unfortunately, towards the third year, we were kind of getting slow on the funds and running slow on the funds. And we had said, right. Yeah. So it's, again, I was like, I have a kid, we're running low on funds. And Dr. Ogunwobi said, you know what, why don't we put you on a part-time so we can stretch the money longer instead of keep paying you full time and then, money's going to run out in a month or two. Exactly. So let's find a way to stretch it. So I was like, yeah, we can make it work. So I worked part-time, in research, part-time is only for the name because you never work part-time when you do research. But anyways, I was like, living in New York, having a kid, the half salary is not going to be, sustainable. So let me see if I can find any other, teaching opportunities to kind of make up for the rest. So as I was actually in Atlanta at that time for the AACR conference in Atlanta, a friend of mine sent me a posting. She's like, I know you're looking for, a part-time teaching position. I know. To this day, I'm so grateful to her. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful to her to this day. She was like, I saw this posting. They're looking for somebody, right away. And it looks like you fit the criteria. So why don't you apply and see? I applied while I was in Atlanta. I had my computer with me. Thank goodness. I whipped up that resume so fast and the letter of interest. And I sent it to the person whose name was in the posting. And she got back to me. And I was like, I'm currently not in New York, but as soon as I come back, I would love to set up something. So they invited me to come do a demo lesson, and they wanted me to talk about, prostate cancer, because again, the school, as you explained early on, we are, PhDs and, teaching college level courses to students who are going to get a dual degree at the end of their, high school year. So when I applied, called me for the demo lesson, it went really well. And they offered me the position for, that fall. The school has already started, actually. So they offered me the position. So I was teaching there and ending early enough so I can go back to the lab and do some of the work. So I did that for a full semester until the end of January. And at the end, they were like, you know what? It feels like things are going really smoothly. The kids, really love and engage with you. We like the way you're teaching and things like that. Would you consider staying full time with us? And I was like, and that was it. And I was like, yes, I would. Yes, I would. So it was a hard decision to make because I truly loved my lab. I truly loved the environment. The students there, we had really created a community. So I was sad to leave them in a sense, but I was also happy because I realized that, having that opportunity to full-time teach the students.
Yeah. And then more pay. The streets gotta eat your mom now.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Oh man, the upgrade is not negligible. It's ridiculous, right? As a postdoc, you're being paid like you're a TA. Yeah. Or, it's So yes, so that was very nice.
Your work is not like a TA. Your work is like first level assistant professor.
Exactly.
You guys work a lot.
All the responsibilities, again, all the communications with anybody who wants to collaborate with us, the reps, teaching the students, like giving the guest lectures, because again, I was doing also some guest lectures at Hunter, so I can, kind of keep exercising my teaching brain. So all of those actually contributed in me being the perfect candidate for that position. Things just worked together.
So you did that from 2017 to 2021, right?
Yes, 2021.
And was it a tenured position or a non-tenured?
So it was a non-tenured position just by the nature of our collaboration with Bard College. Yeah, so it was a non-tenured, but understood that, as long as it's a, mutual agreement. You're doing your job. The college, you just like basically renewing your contract every 3 years. But it was just, but it was non-tenured. Yeah, it was non-tenured.
And then what made you pray tell? I mean, we already know that you have this pattern of just going for the big guns and even if you're doing it afraid, one will see the outcome, like excellence all through. What made you decide, you know what, tenure, non-tenure, shmish, I'm going to go for that dean position. Girl, how did you do it? You crazy lady, you.
Oh, man, I know. It's just like circumstances. So it happened that our former dean, she was leaving basically because she had a new position that she committed to, so she was leaving. But as I was in the school, and probably we'll talk about it, related to the podcast that I started, talking with the students and just seeing some of the things they need and how I can help them, I just felt like having another responsibility other than just being in the classroom would be so much more impactful. Because again, in the classroom, it's only my direct students that I touch. But I had a vision of touching everybody.
Oh, wow. Girl,
right?
That's more work.
So it was just, I know, always, those goals and, really trying to do what I think I'm being called for and just support and be there, for students and help them be the best that they can be. So the dean's position accumulated, a part of teaching, but also a part of being there for the students' life and making sure that, whatever it is that they need, you can support them and also support, other faculty. So it was kind of a sweet spot for what I thought that I wanted to do. I still wanted to continue to teach, which was, still a component of it, but also being able to reach more students than the only ones I'm seeing in the classroom. So when the position opened, I was like, I need to try for this. Because I feel like this is the right time. It's been 4 years since I've been working with the school. Everything, has been great. And I'm like, I want to expand, my reach. I want to be able to reach more students. I want to be able to communicate more, to do more things for them and do more things with them. So let me apply and let's see what happens. So it was. You
guys, you can't even see her right now, but she's glowing. She's glowing. She had glows during different times of her talks, right? But this particular glow is different.
Thank you. So that's
amazing. I mean, you're an immigrant. Let's just be very factual about that. And you're in a place where it's highly competitive. And I remember, even though you're not going to mention this, but I'm going to do it. When she was applying for this, she reached out to me. And there were some people that were even qualified as well, equally qualified. Yeah. I would say maybe just even slightly a bit more because, again, remember, this is her first time actually following into this. She had not a lot of experience, except her passion and, of course, her other merits as an educator and researcher and everything. But you just going for the dean, I mean, that was bold. And she got it. Again, another lesson, you apply. You never know.
Yeah.
You still apply. You could just get it.
Yeah. So, and applying, having hopes, and also, being okay and not something, that I want to make sure that I share with people. It's just, even if you don't get it, it is okay. The experience that you earn from going through the process is going to help you down the road for something. So again, always try. Even when you feel like, there's someone else who is more qualified. It's okay. Apply. Do your best.
True. We want to talk about that. Like, even if I don't get it, at least I was able to assess my interviewing skills. Maybe I even got flown out to go do that interview.
Absolutely.
People, many potential collaborators. And I'm gonna get the job, but I got this other experience.
Yes. That you can use for the next job around, right? And be like, this is what I did. This is the feedback I got. How do I improve on those? Make changes so I can be even better for the other one. Because if you don't practice, like, how are you going to get better if you don't know or what to expect?
So true.
So
because we just get stuck at that rejection phase. What if? what if not? What if you do get it? What if it don't turn out for you? What if you get additional experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
your mom, 2 kids, and I finally met up with Adeodat like 2 months ago. Last month, actually, no, last month.
Last month
before Thanksgiving, and I took the train from Manhattan all the way where she lives, and we had such a good time. And then Adeodat came. She did that
really
with
nice.
that whole Asian great thing. She saw me up all the way back to my hotel in Manhattan, and then we sat down and we talked. And then she go, I'm like, Adeodat is like 1 a.m. She's like, this is New York, baby. Like,
I know, right?
All night. I'm like, wow, me not coming from the boondocks. Like
the city that never sleeps.
Literally. After 9 p.m., everything shuts down in Oklahoma City. But it was really nice to see her again after such a long time.
Yeah.
So, Mom, how are you balancing those 2 things? Because I can't imagine it's easy. Now your responsibilities have increased. And your your second born, because I don't know if she's like Amo, was just, she's fairly brand new.
Yes.
And here you are still looking like a teenager, and that glow that we're talking about.
And it's just the look. The sleep deprivation is real. But to be honest and not to, it is very, very hard. And I'm still struggling with it. And, we've had the discussion a little bit, but it's really been challenging. It's been, again, being fairly new in the position, because when I started working as the dean, I only worked for 1 semester because, again, I was pregnant. So handling that job while being pregnant, and a pretty difficult pregnancy, I was like, how do I start the job on the right foot, giving my all and giving the best I can while, trying my best to carry this pregnancy, to terms. And then I was on leave the second half of the school year. So basically this year is the first year that I'm going to be the dean for the full year without, any break. Having a baby in the mix that is not fully doing her nights yet. Yeah, I'm looking at the baby. So, it's really been hard trying to balance it, because again, sometimes being a high achiever and having, high hopes for yourself and your family can really be hard to carry, because you're feeling like, how do I keep doing the job that I actually
to put out? Yep.
Exactly. Enjoy in a way that I'm happy with, because sometimes even when you are not micromanaged and people are not, looking for your every move, you for yourself, you're like, okay, I want to be good at this job. I enjoy this. How do I do it the best I can, even when nobody is looking, So that was one thing. As a mom, how am I showing up, for my older daughter and to the youngest one, and
like
being a wife?
Right?
Yes, she's 8, right? And also, how do I find time for myself? Because that was the thing that I really struggled with, really trying to take care of everybody and everything else, and be like at 9:30 at night and being so tired that I cannot even like do anything for myself. And that started, weighing. And then I was like, you know what? Yeah. For you to be able to pour from a cup, that cup needs to be full. So how do I, right? So how do I go back to the position where I still manage to do a few things for myself, so that I can keep doing all of that for other people. And, that self-care is real. Being there for yourself so you can even be more present for others is truly important. So I've had to do that mental work and be like, you know what? It's okay for me to also put myself in the list of priorities and carve that time instead of taking the leftover time. Yeah. Because there was no leftover time.
There was no leftover. I don't know about you. I feel like we don't get to learn that a lot as African women. Our moms don't teach us that priority. If anything, we're told to, especially being the firstborn, we're told to put our emotions aside and take care of everybody.
Totally. Yeah. And care for everybody.
Those things have their merit, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to demonize what we're taught, but there needs to be a balance to that story. Because when we get to that point, like when you go to that point, it's almost like taking time for yourself felt like you're being selfish and letting everybody down. But you need it to.
The guilt. Right. I know. I battle, and I did not think I would battle with it, but the guilt, that's true, because we are not taught to care for ourselves first. So it's like, oh, should I be doing this? Everybody else needs me. Like, I'm closing the door for 30 minutes, like, and the baby's crying. Like, I should just go and pick the baby, right? I'm like, no, there's someone else to pick the baby. Just let her. It's hard. It is hard.
She's not crying tears of blood. She's good.
Right, I know, right? But it's so hard, as a mom to come to terms and be like, I need to set, those boundaries and be okay with it. And I'm not very good at it yet, but I'm definitely better than I was a few months ago.
Before. Yes. I think for you, it was kind of like a sudden move because it was you and Rania for a while, and then bam, was two other people as well. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a lot. But you're doing it. You're doing it. So what would you say are some things that helped you at least get your voice back? Some resources you've used or some things you relied on that helped you realize that, okay, I can be Adeodat first. And once I can get to Adeodat, I can help other aspects of Adeodat, the mom, the wife, the sister, the daughter, the dean, the student, all of those things be in harmony.
Yeah, I had actually gotten to a point where it was the first time that I realized that I needed to talk to someone, like as in someone, like a professional. Because again,
talking to a professional.
Right? That's what I was going to say. Is like, this is not how we do in, this part of the world. We don't talk to other people.
Were your parents supportive of it?
They don't know.
Okay, then they should never get to listen to this episode.
Yes. They do not know.
Why are they so opposed to therapy? I don't know why.
And it's just like
pray about it. I'm praying.
Right. I know, but those are conversations that we never had. So it's even so uncomfortable, to talk about it. My mom is currently here, but that's not something that I'm talking to her about because we haven't love my mom to death. But those are that conversation that we've.
It stress me out.
Exactly, and I don't want to.
I'll probably need to call my therapist right away for like an emergency. We love them, but it's just oh my god.
I know. So I'm really very grateful that I have a husband who himself he has been to therapy because he's not African, so he's been in therapy, right? And he knows the value, and we able to talk. But I just needed to talk to someone else, So I took that step, and it's only once I started doing it that I gained a new perspective and just realized that whatever I was battling with was legitimate. I was entitled to feel the way I was feeling, and it was okay to feel those feelings. And it's just like, okay, what do I do from there? And what are the steps that I take from there? So having this talk from someone who has no interest per se in my life, as in they have no stakes in it, giving me that perspective, I was like, that is true. I had forgotten all of this. I had lost this part, right? So that has really helped to kind of regain that and be like, okay, what are the things that I truly enjoyed doing? And I'm like, okay, I wanted to create this platform, right? Exactly. I've been talking about this podcast or whatever way for like so long. And I think it's going to take a weight off my shoulder if I finally do it instead of,
around her birthday, she finally did it.
Yes. And setting that goal really helped me be like, you need to show up for yourself. This is a gift that you're giving yourself for your birthday. Please show up and do it. You deserve the gift. So, do the thing. And, other things like sewing. I started learning sewing during the pandemic, and I've really taken
I went to her house, guys. She has a whole room, a whole store room. I'm like, wait, you just started sewing during the pandemic? She does unconventional things like picnic stuff, and she doesn't even sell them. She actually donates them to like shelters and living facilities for like elderly people. She does like just things that you need, but you don't see in the stores. Unconventional, and she does them so well. No.
Thank you. So right, I was like, those are the things that bring me joy, that fills my cup. So let me set up the time to be able to do them and not wait until I'm so tired that I cannot even keep my eyes open. Like, what are you gonna sew, at 10 p.m. when you can't even see straight, right? So I started carve those times like during the weekend when I would get up, I would be like, you take care of the kids, talking to my husband. I need that 1 hour or 1.5 hours for myself to start a project before, I come back to taking care of the house and things like that. So this has slowly been, the saving grace to carve that time first. And then when I'm revigorated and like ready, I'm like, okay, I've done this thing for myself. I'm here for you guys. What do you need from me?
I'm even enjoying those things. I'm being like, you know what? This is my time. Mommy's time. I'm not going to feel guilty about it because if mommy gets her time, guess what? You're going to get your time times 5. But I need this time.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And it's really been helpful. And every day I'm making conscious effort to be like, yes, let me set up the time and I will be with you guys for the rest. But this time, let me do what I need to do so I can be there, fully present for you. Because that's also the thing. Because when you're there for the other people and your brain is somewhere else,
present with them, but not
right?
yourself.
Exactly. So yeah, I know. So once I've done what I wanted to do, I'm fully open. My mind is like, okay, I've done what filled me. I'm here for you now. So let's go. I am ready.
Yeah. So your passion, I mean, as if you haven't even conquered the world enough. You're like, let me release a podcast. Because I want to equip younger people. And I think I imagine it came from a point in your life where maybe as you were growing, you realized that if I had had access to this and that, probably I would have done this and not regret in that area, but you just want to find a way to connect with people more and help their future self thank them. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. What, inspired it and how's it going? How are you finding being a podcaster? Like,
all right, thank you. Oh my goodness, it's been so interesting. So going back to, really what inspired the specific topic. So when I think it was back in 2019, so 2 years into me teaching and really realizing that this is the environment I want to be with, because again, passionate educator, I can only deal with teenagers. For some reason, it's like
I'm the opposite. Everybody but teenagers.
So right,
so we clash.
I know, right? For some reason, it's great. We have our run-intos, but for the most part, it's really great. So one day, we organize usually every year in the spring, Community Day. So Community Day would be a day where we'd have maybe outside speakers come and talk about topics, and would also do other things in-house. Coincidentally, I was one of the faculty members who was responsible from moderating one talk about a company that was coming from outside to talk about, finances and student loans to the students, like do a presentation. Won't you believe they did not show up? So we sat in the room. I am telling you, we were there waiting for them. They did not come. So I texted the person who coordinated the whole event, and I'm like, oh, those people are not here yet. I'm sitting with the students, like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, oh, no, they couldn't come, but I just forgot to tell you. So, pass the time. And I was like, okay, let's talk. So I've always been someone who, again, when I recorded the first episode and talked about my story, I kind of explained how I got introduced, to financial literacy and things like that. And it's always been something that was dear to my heart. So when I started talking to the students, I realized that very few of them knew. They were about to graduate. They had no clue of the banking services, the financial aid, the student loan. They had no life skills per se. They are smart. They can critically think their way out of any academic, topic, but they could not figure out what to do once they graduate to college and how they're going to live, And I was like, right? And I'm like, you guys have no clue? No clue. The credit card, the credit score. And I'm like, no way. So I sat down and I thought about it. And I'm like, those financial decisions or moves are going to be some of the most important and recurrent decisions that you will be having to make every single time. And from just experience and people around me, seeing, the debt that they have, like consumer debt and whatnot. And I'm like, you want to know going in what you are setting yourself up for. Otherwise, you're going to be trapped and it's going to be hard to, come back to the surface. So I sat down, and that came because like on the side, I was volunteering, like helping, friends and neighbors and whatnot figure out their finances, because they were in a situation where they didn't even know how to pay down the debt. They were like drowned by the interest fees of those credit cards companies, and they just didn't know how to work out their budget and things like that. And because, again, of how I've been brought up and my dad really teaching me those things, it has always been something that was seamless for me. And I was like, maybe there is something there. Instead of me trying to help an adult figure out their finances and how to pay a credit card and fully pay it and not use it in a way that would be detrimental to their own finances, why don't I teach that to my students before they are even, so that going in, they know the mistakes not to make, so they don't have to pay for those mistakes like 10 years later, right? So that's really how it came about. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, what are the things that I can talk about and how am I going to talk about them and things like that? So I actually went to my principal that semester and I was like, you know what? This is what I've seen for the most of the students that I talk to. There is a real need here. Would you allow me to set up a club or a class where I'll be having conversations with students? I don't want you to pay me for anything. I just want the space. Give me like as a room and give me a period and let me do the reach out to the students. And it's like totally fine.
Did they show up? Did the students show up?
They did show up.
Thank God.
They did show up. So I run a survey. I was like, this is what I'm planning. This is what I have in mind. Would you be interested? And I had like a full,
put it at the back of their minds, like,
yes, right? And they were so grateful. Yeah. Unfortunately, when we started, like the following year, that's when the pandemic hit. But we had started having the conversations in person once a week. We would sit down and break down, what are the credit cards about? Like, how do you make sure that, you're using them responsibly? What does it mean when they tell you, oh, this is the minimum payment and then the interest fees is 27%? Like, if you pay the minimum payment, you're going to keep paying, like those little things that they don't really know. Or like the overdraft fees or the ATM fees. Like, how is it that you're taking, only $20 from the ATM? You pay $1 for it. Right? All of those things. So I was like, let them know those little things so that when they make the decision, they kind of think globally. So we started doing it. The pandemic hit and we reverted to using Zoom, actually, even for that. And they still showed up. And they still showed up. And I showed them how to work out the budget, how to set up the budget so that, they can make sure that they have their needs covered. And if they have wants, how do you set up goals? How do you save for it? How do you, also not, because one of the things that the peer pressure and wanting to keep up with the Joneses, right? It's like, as student, all of those things, how do you work up your mind in a way that you are not tempted by any and everything that other people are doing, that you're living according to your own values, right? It takes practice, but the sooner you start practicing it, the better it's going to get, and the more you can advocate for yourself, so that when there is a situation that you don't feel comfortable being in, you can say, you know what, guys, this does not look like it's going to fit what I need, so I'm going to just, back out. Being able to, it's not easy to do, and if you don't start early, it's so hard.
Tell me about it.
And I know about it for exercise because I hate exercising because I didn't learn it early.
But look at you. You look like you go to the gym like every hour.
Oh man, I don't. But
natural,
anyway.
Man. You guys are so natural. Even smelling the burger from my farm already added like 60 pounds. One of those people. Yeah, one of those people that, you're just naturally gifted.
Thank you.
Yeah,
but those were the things, right? That when you learn things early on and you practice them, it becomes second nature. And that you don't have to struggle so much about, okay, what am I supposed to do here? You don't have to feel overwhelmed, because that was my thing, right? finding a way to present the information in a way that is not overwhelming. And they can just take it, learn as they go, and build the knowledge, the stamina, and the discipline so that later on, if they want to dig even deeper in a specific subject, they already had the baseline knowledge presented in a simple way. So that has always been, the idea.
You found yourself in full circle because your deanship position has also helped you. I imagine that even though you had a dream, I know you've always wanted to have your own podcast in a while, but being in a position of within and what you've been exposed to in having that access to a wide, number of students, a wider number of students, has helped you streamline. Okay, I can actually make a podcast out of it because everything you were doing before then, and your mini classes with them, and teaching them life skills, you've just elevated it to a bigger, stage, and that's beautiful, Adeodat. I think the moral is whatever your hands find to do, just keep doing it because you just never know. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
totally.
As a wrap up, I want you to do something for me. I haven't done this before. Let's look at Adeodat, the state of your life we've explored on the podcast so far. So what you can just come up with would be like a phrase or a word that describes it. Okay. So Adeodat growing up in Burkina Faso, what's that one word that you say can summarize all of your experience?
Growing up in Burkina Faso. That's really, I'm like, okay, let me just, growing up in Burkina, happy. Okay. And then Adeodat moving to France in 2004. Challenging, but grateful.
I like that. Now, Adeodat moving from France in 2014, right? To New York as a postdoc.
The hardest season of my life I've ever experienced, but grateful for all of the experiences because it made me the person I am. It was rough. Yes.
It's always gratitude. Okay, good. Now, Adeodat as an assistant professor.
So much fun.
Adeodat as a first-time mom.
What the?
Now, Adeodat as a dean.
So much paperwork.
Adeodat as a wife to Cameron.
Best decision I've ever made.
Oh, hi Cameron. Adeodat as a second-time mom. So that cute baby. Oh, by the way, guys, her baby is so chill. Her baby is so chill. Like, I have a daughter, right? My daughter is chill, but another different layer of chill. Her daughter is oh my God. She's so chill. She's like an old soul chill. Like, she looks at you like, I'm not here to stress anybody out. Don't stress me out. I'll give you my attention, but do not stress me out. I just love. I know she looks. She has this cherubic chick. She just want to talk at them all year long. Okay, so I do that as a second-time mom. You mean like there's like a 7-year gap in between?
Yes. Girl. So it's like twice the love, but 7 times the work. Oh my goodness! They don't tell you what a difference it makes to add another kid. Oh my goodness!
It's not easier.
It's rough.
Will it get better if the third one comes in the way? Do you think? I'm just kidding.
I certainly hope so. Because man, it's a lot. You feel like you are like a household wife. You're never done with the picking up, the cleaning up, the feeding, the burping. It's just like a whole thing. But I would not change it for the world. But man, we have to acknowledge, because sometimes that's the thing, right? We talk about the joys, which is great, but we don't talk about the challenges. And that's why people didn't tell you. And then we don't know. And we get there, it's like, but why didn't anybody say something?
But it still has never stopped from people from doing it, because again, I think there's something you just forget about and you just go into it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think, for everyone, I already told you, know this, I'm going to say it again. You're amazeballs, 100%.
Oh, thank you.
And everything you're talking about is, we're coming up with word to kind of reduce all of your experience into one word.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what an exercise I gave you. What a horrible. All of those things in your life, even though there were challenges, there was also happy moments. And I like how you even punctuated it. When you talked about the challenges, you said, "Oh, I still have gratitude." And I think that's the moral of all of your story. Like, despite everything you've gone through, you still have a heart full of Thanksgiving, and it hasn't limited you. Even in times where you felt like it limited you, you were still able to learn from them and move forward.
I tried.
Why
Yeah.
I want to bring you on podcast, because I wanted to show people just this amazing woman who's been through such a lot, and we haven't even talked about other aspects of her life. Maybe sometime in the future when she's ready, she can come.
Maybe. Yes. Maybe.
She's overcome a lot, guys, to be here. And, you know, it might make it sound easy because an hour-long podcast, there's only so much you can talk about without, you know, having to, like, you know, clear the whole schedule for the whole day to, like, talk about stuff. But let me let you know that. If I tell you that this girl has gone through a lot to be here today, believe my word for that. But she's still a fighter. She's still present in body, and she's not letting it up anytime soon. And this is what we would like to leave with you guys today, listening to this episode, that whatever it is in your life that you feel there's not been a progress being made, perhaps this episode will serve as a reminder, as a catalyst to go for your goals. Whether you are stuck in somewhere in Africa or you're finding yourself in the western part of France, or as a postdoc in the lab sweating your balls away or your non-balls away, you're person nobody's speaking your language and you're sick from home. Find an oasis, you know, and I know we didn't talk about this in particular, but another thing Adeodat does, she has community of people around her. I think we did mention it, a little bit of that, but you cannot do life alone. You have to find people around you to help you and build you up. Like her friend sending her that job, you know, opportunity, or even her just applying through LinkedIn, whatever it is, just keep going. So we hope this episode, you know, serves as a reminder of that. Adeodat, where can people find you, and what is the name of your fantastic podcast?
So I'm not so much of a social media person yet, unfortunately.
Facebook is dead.
So
I follow her since 2014. I don't think she's posted anything in time.
No, I'm really struggling with social media.
I don't think you even go on Facebook.
barely. But so I did create an Instagram account because I wanted, you know, to use that also as another vessel for the podcast. So the Instagram handle is Your Future Self Will Thank You. And that's also the name of the podcast. And it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Stitcher. So Your Future Self Will Thank You.
Okay. And we'll tag all of, if you can just send me the links, we'll tag all of that in there.
Okay.
And
sounds good.
I mean, this was worth it, by the way, because your question in the beginning was, I hope this is going to be worth it. This is worth it. And I'm so honored to come on the show. I know it's been such a busy time for you, and it took a while to even get this time together. And I know you had a birthday celebrated recently, so happy birthday in Irish.
Thank you. I always like the, you know, days and weeks surrounding my birthday. So this is really the happiest, you know, moment for me usually, because I really love my birthday time. So thank you. And thank you so much for having me. And, you know, we're not even talking about all that you're doing. And I just want your listeners to know that Mo has always been my model. Every time that we talk, and I'm like, how do you do this? Because she presented it as I'm the one, you know, doing and doing all things, but, you know, you guys know her and you know the work that she's been doing, all of the accomplishments. And thank you for all that you do. Thank you for reflecting that image, you know, for all of us to always want to strive for so much better. Thank you for being you, Mo.
Sure. Oh my gosh. How can you make me end it like this? I'm already almost tearing up. Oh, this is how you get back at me, right? But anyways,
it's true. It is true.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to have you as my sister as well. And thank you for just, you know, keeping it moving. And I know your story is going to inspire and love our listeners today, because you're not on social media, people don't get to know about you. But this is going to change all of it. And I also want it to be so that when Rania is, probably she might listen to this episode, she can see other aspects of her mom. Because I think sometimes as parents, our kids don't really get to know who we really are. I remember I talked to my mom about her life. I realized that, my goodness, this woman has a story apart from being mom. All I just see is mom. But it's important.
That's true.
Right? So this is another way to add to that awesomeness, so that your kids can, when they listen to this in the future as a time capsule, they can always know your story, and that can also inspire them. So thank you for adding to that repertoire.
Thank you.
And I wish you a happy new year and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Happy New Year to you too. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This was an episode of Adeodat. Go listen to other episodes as well. If there are any questions you have or other ways we can support you, don't hesitate to reach out. Our email address is talktomo@mosibyl.com, and we can be found on all major platforms. As always, I remain your host, Sibyl, and catch you on another episode of the Sibyl podcast. Yes.